Welcome, YouTube. Today, on our first episode of Watch Talk, we will be talking about Tag Heuer, where the brand is at, where it's heading, and where it was. Now, I understand most of the watch community will tell you Tag Heuer are not good watches, and you just should skip them and go straight for Rolex. I personally think if a new person is getting into watches, they're not going to go spend $4 or $5 grand on a Rolex. They want to start out and test the waters. Now, I think Tag Heuer is a fantastic brand to do this at, but just be sure not to pay retail because that is where people have a problem. And I will be explaining everything in this video today, my thoughts of Tag Heuer, and I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. I would love to hear your stories if you own one and your experience with the brand. Now, flipping the camera, let's talk about the specific 2002 Tag Heuer Aquaracer. We'll get into the dimensions and I'll talk about the specifications after. It is a 39 millimeter across, excluding the crown. It is 20 millimeters from lug to lug and 10 millimeters thick. The entire watch is made out of 316L stainless steel, which is an industry standard. The bracelet has a high polished mid link and brushed outer links. The clasp is not milled, it's a press clasp. No markature or stamp on this side. On the flip side, there is a Tag Heuer stainless steel and the bracelet number. Now there is a diver's extension, no signage or signature from Tag there. It just looks like an afterthought. Very little stainless steel right there. If we look at the screw down case back, you can see an old helmet of a diver. You can see the Tag Heuer shield, 300 meters, 1,000 feet, sapphire crystal, Swiss made since 1860. That's when Heuer started. Now taking a closer look at the dial, there is a 12 o'clock applied Arabic with indices going all the way around, excluding the 3 o'clock. There is a Tag Heuer shield with Aquaracer printed and 300 meters below that. The very bottom, it says Swiss made. It has a 120 click unidirectional bezel, which the pip is loomed. So also are the hands and indices. There is a screw down crown, which we have to unthread, and it feels very nice on the hand. It doesn't feel like it's cheaply made. There is 2 distinct crown settings for the date and to set the time, which also hacks the movement and stops the second hand. They put dead flat sapphire on the watch, which is very nice for the scratch resistance. Now, let's flip the camera and I'll tell you my thoughts about Tag, where they're at, and where they're hopefully will be going, and who should buy this watch. Now, after taking a closer look at my Pacific 2002 Tag Heuer Aquaracer, let's talk about where people have issues with the watch, what I think the biggest problem in the watch community with Tag Heuer is, and where I think they should go in the future. Now, Tag Heuer, the brand is famous. It's notorious. Steve McQueen wore that, and the Monaco is just fantastic, square, beautiful watch. I think that is the coolest watch ever in a racing movie. I just think it's awesome. But later on, the quartz crisis hit. A lot of the Swiss watches got in big trouble. A lot of them went out of business because of this. And Heuer was in deep, deep trouble. And then Tag came along, acquired them, and they made these fashion watches in the 90s. And they became famous, and, you know, they're just, that's what got them out of the dumps. And now they're charging crazy money for these fashion watches that I don't think should ever go for this price. Now, this watch I saw going for $1,530 online. Now that's crazy. That's just, it's ludicrous. That's a crazy, crazy number. That's, as we say, mushugana. It's just blows my mind because For $1,530, you can go and get no misses, less. There's Seikos. You can almost, if you save a bit more, you can get Grand Seiko, or even if you save a little more than that, you can get a great Rolex too. So there's so many options if you just realize the amount you're spending and the value you're getting with this watch. Now, it's hollow end links. It feels rattly, the bracelet. The movement is a quartz movement, which there's nothing wrong with quartz. Grand Seiko is fantastic quartz movements. Rolex has quartz movements, but they're jeweled. They're more accurate, and they're cared more. It's not just, oh, let me take an off-the-shelf movement where I didn't create anything, and it's just, there's no thought and time created into this. I think the date window on this watch, there's no metal around it, there's nothing, it just looks like an afterthought. They just carved out a little window and put a date in there because maybe the movement had one. And that's just, that I don't like. It seems like my money didn't even feel like it's spent in a good way. Now, that's my opinion. There's some of you out there that bought the watch at retail and you have a great time. And I think this watch is great for the not the collector, but a guy who wants to wear a watch every day, doesn't care what it's really worth, and just loves it to death, beats it to death, and enjoys a nice Swiss watch with a quartz movement. If you have this watch, it can be rugged. You don't have to keep it wound. You can just beat it around, and it's just nice to have. You wake up in the morning, it's still ticking. Go to bed, never have to worry about it, and never have to rewind it or anything. Just replace it every couple of years. $1 battery, you can go and get it. Now, the flip side, to the collector, this is a horrible watch. To the guy, the connoisseur, this watch just says, hey, if you're willing to spend $1,500, go with this, go with this. You're crazy to do that. Why'd you do that? And they yell at the person that doesn't know. And the guy who really is not such a collector and just has a one watch collection or a few watches, they don't care. They just love their watches. They're good with them for life, for the rest of the watch life, and they don't need to sell it. Now, the problem lies is when a guy goes on a cruise, he goes to a tax-free zone in the Bahamas maybe, or the islands, and he goes and buys, say he pays $1,500 for this watch, right? He goes, he buys it, he thinks he got a good deal, he didn't pay tax, whatever. He comes back on the cruise, he says he keeps it a year, he doesn't look up watches, he doesn't look up what the gray market's selling for, whatever, and he says, hey, I loved my Tag Heuer, it was a great quartz watch, I'm ready to move up, I'm ready to get into collecting, I'm ready to go, maybe the next step to Rolex, let's sell my Tag and let's save up for a Rolex. Now, when they realize, they say, hey, if I paid $1,500, it's got to be worth at least $1,000 or $800. They go online, they see it's selling for $300, maybe $500 if you're lucky, and they're realizing, hey, I just bought a watch. I got screwed because now I have to save up extra more for my Rolex. Now it's even longer to achieve my Rolex, or not just Rolex, or say you want an Omega or IWC, any of those watches, they retain more value than Tag. Tag is notorious for not retaining value, and that's where the collector and the buyer get mad. So I'm saying, if you want to go out and buy these new, go ahead, just realize that this is a watch for life, or the watch life, not for your life, but it's just not a good thing to sell, and just keep it. I think this watch will last a long time. If you want to give it to your children, it's a watch, and it's fun for the owner. If you buy a watch, don't care what anybody else thinks. Even if it's a fashion watch, just love it and just be in your element and be yourself with your watches. Don't be shy about it. Don't be like, oh, it's just a cheap Tag Heuer, I got screwed, it's just not good. No, just say, hey, I like it. That's great that you have an opinion on your Tag, And it's great you have an opinion on all of the watches, but I like mine and I'm happy with mine. Now stay tuned, I'm going to show a lume video and a wrist shot at the end, and I hope you all have a lovely day. If you liked my advice on Tag Heuer as a brand and my review on my watch, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe. Here's the wrist shot. Now, I say in my review and talk about it after that it's not a $1,500, but as you can see, it sits nicely on the wrist. You got the sapphire, as we talked about, and everything. So I just wanted to clarify, I didn't want to come out and say that it doesn't have elements of a very expensive watch. I just want to make that clear before. But here it is on the wrist, and here's the lume shot. As you can see, the lume is fantastic and it lasts a long time. Everything's glowing perfect. And this watch is 18 years old and it's still looking like this. It's fantastic. Let's speed it up for you. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks again for watching.